Hi team, Miss Vaughn here. Chapter 24, moving forward. I don't want to read this whole chapter to you. To contextualize it, we're moving away from the women and we're going to be focusing on Paul D. Paul D has been sleeping in a church because no one from the community will let him into their homes. He's been getting drunk in the church, and at the very top of page 258, he's, he's left alone with his thoughts. He's all by himself. And remember that his tobacco tin, there's that tobacco tin that is the metaphor for his heart. Beloved opened it up. And it says here at the top of page 258, his tobacco tin blown open, spilled contents that floated freely and made him their play and prey. So all of those contents are things that have happened to him in the past. And so he's going to go through his last couple of days at Sweet Home. All right. I don't want to read all of this to you because I just really think that you should read some of it to yourself. Um, but I will read some of the heavier stuff aloud just because I know that that's counterintuitive, but I think that some of the heavier stuff needs to be processed verbally rather than just your own thoughts. Because, like Toni Morrison said, like it's a communal experience for us to read this book. Okay, let's start at the top of page 264. We're going to be looking at the adaptation that happened to their escape. So Sixo, we know that he stole that pig, he roasted it, he ate it. School teacher accused him of stealing. Sixo said, no, I'm improving your property. Sixo got beat for it. Sixo also gets tied up every night. But we know our boy Sixo, he ain't going down without a fight. So he gets tied up every night, but he hides a nail in his mouth so that he can break himself free, and then he gets retied up. So you can't stop that man, Sixo. So Sixo, when he's out in his, when he goes out into the forest and he dances, or when he goes on those long walks to see his woman, not his woman, like property, his 30-mile, his partner, his 30-mile woman, as she is called. He hears about the Underground Railroad. He plans an escape with the people of Sweet Home, and there has to be changes that are made along the way because they had planned it in the spring when it was nicer, but then Setha gets pregnant. Okay, page 264 at the top. But they had to alter it just a little. First, they changed the leaving. They memorized the directions Hallie gives them. Sixo, needing time to untie himself, break open the door, and not disturb the horses, will leave later, joining them at the creek with the 30-mile woman. All four will go straight to the corn. Hallie, who also needs more time now because of Setha, decides to bring her and the children at night, not wait till first light. They will go straight to the corn and not assemble at the creek. The corn stretches to their shoulders and it will never be higher. The moon is swelling. They can hardly harvest or chop or clear or pick or haul for listening for a rattle that is not bird or snake. Then one mid-morning they hear it, or Hallie does, and begins to sing it to the others. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? On his dinner break, he leaves the field. He has to. He has to tell Setha that he heard the sign. For 2 successive nights, she has been with Mrs. Garner, and he can't chance it that she will not know that this night she cannot be. The Pauls see him go. From underneath Brother's shade, where they are chewing corn cake, they see him, swinging along. The bread tastes good. They lick sweat from their lips to give it a saltier flavor. Schoolteacher and his pupils are already at the house eating dinner. Hallie swings along. He is not singing now. Nobody knows what happened, except for the churn, and that was the last anybody ever saw of Hallie. What Paul D knew was that Hallie disappeared, never told Setha anything, and was next seen squatting in butter. Maybe when he got to the gate and asked to see Setha, schoolteacher heard a tint of anxiety in his voice, the tint that would make him pick up his ever-ready shotgun. Maybe Hallie made the mistake of saying "my wife" in some way that would put a light in schoolteacher's eye. Setha says now that she heard shots but did not look out the window of Mrs. Garner's bedroom, but Hallie was not killed or wounded that day because Paul D saw him later, after she had run off with no one's help, after Sixo laughed and his brother disappeared, saw him greased and flat-eyed as a fish. Maybe schoolteacher shot after him, shot at his feet to remind him of the trespass. Maybe Hallie got in the barn, hid there, and got locked in with the rest of schoolteacher's stock. Maybe anything. He disappeared and everybody was on his own. Paul A goes back to moving timber after dinner. They are to meet at quarters for supper. He never shows up. Paul D leaves for the creek on time, believing, hoping Paul A has gone on ahead. Certain schoolteacher has learned something. Paul D gets to the creek and it is dry as Sixo promised. He waits there with the 30-mile woman for Sixo and Paul A. Only Sixo shows up, his wrist bleeding, his tongue licking his lips like a flame. You see Paul A? No. Hallie? No. No sign of them? No sign. Nobody in quarters but the children. Seppa? Her children sleep. She must be there still. I can't leave without Paul A. I can't help you. Should I go back and look for them? I can't help you. What you think? I think they go straight to the corn. Sixo turns into the woman and they clutch each other and whisper. She is lit now with some glowing, some shining that comes from inside her. Before, when she knelt on creek pebbles with Paul D, she was nothing, a shape in the dark, breathing lightly. Okay, think about when women glow. Okay, what does that mean? 30-mile woman sees Sixo, they embrace each other, and she's glowing afterward. Sixo is about to crawl to look for the knives he buried. He hears something. He hears nothing. Forget the knives. Now, the three of them climb up the bank, and schoolteacher, his pupils, and 4 other white men move toward them with lamps. Sixo pushes the 30-mile woman, and she runs further on in the creek bed. Paul D and Sixo run the other way toward the woods. Both are surrounded and tied. Okay, Sixo pushes the 30-mile woman so that they split up, and schoolteacher and his men, they chase Paul D and Sixo, and they tie him up. The air gets sweet then, and remember, this is from Paul D's perspective. Perfumed by the things honeybees love. Tied like the mule, Paul D feels how dewy and inviting the grass is. Okay, so Paul D starts to disassociate a little bit. He's like thinking about how nice the grass is after he gets tied up because he's probably kind of emotionally preparing for his end. And this is where some of the graphic stuff happens. He's thinking about that and where Paul A might be when Sixo turns and grabs the mouth of the nearest pointing rifle. He begins to sing. 2 others above Paul D, and 2 others shove Paul D and tie him to a tree. Schoolteacher is saying, alive, alive, I want him alive. Sixo swings and cracks the ribs of one, but with bound hands cannot get the weapon in position to use it in any other way. All the white men have to do is wait for his song perhaps to end. 5 guns are trained on him while they listen. Paul D cannot see them when they step away from lamplight. Finally, one of them hits Sixo in the head with a rifle, and when he comes to, a hickory fires in front of him, and he's tied at the waist to a tree. Schoolteacher has changed his mind. This one will never be suitable. The song must have convinced him. Okay. This is heartbreaking, but also Sixo, man. Acts of resistance on the part of Sixo. He gets caught. He could just give up, give in to the fear, and let them kill him, but he doesn't. He fights back. He grabs the gun and he starts to sing, which is such a powerful move for him to make because he is explicitly showing schoolteacher and his men that they cannot use fear to rule over him as he sings. Also, props to Monica, made the point that Sixo is he probably feels the impulse to need to sing because of those spirituals that we listened to before we started reading the book, how they were often coded to send messages about the Underground Railroad, that for Sixo to sing, he's sending a message out to all of the people who are part of the Underground Railroad, because remember, this is the day that they were leaving. So the act of resistance on his part to not give in to the fear, to protect people, and then to fight back when Paul D just starts to surrender, where he like gives in and starts thinking about grass. Schoolteacher originally wanted Sixo alive, but then at the end of this, with the song, it says this one will never be suitable, meaning that schoolteacher thinks that Sixo will never be like tame enough, or he won't be compliant enough for him to be enslaved again. The fire keeps failing and the white men are put out with themselves at not being prepared for this emergency. They came to capture, not kill. What they can manage is only enough for cooking hominy. By the light of the hominy fire, Sixo straightens. He is through with his song. He laughs. A rippling sound like that the suns make when the tumble in the hay or a splash in the rainwater. His feet are cooking. The cloth of his trousers smoke. He laughs. Something is funny. Poldy guesses what it is when Sixo interrupts his laughter to call out, 7-0, 7-0. Okay, so think about 30-mile woman. She's glowing. Sixo, he pretty much knows that he's going to die. He laughs in response to that because schoolteacher says that Sixo is not suitable. Sixo knows that there is a 7-0 on the way. So again, Sixo's final act of being alive is an act of resistance, knowing that he is dying so that his offspring can live. And then also, school teacher thinks that by killing him, it's like killing the end of Sixo's line. But Sixo is like in his head, he's got to be thinking like, I've snuck away from Sweet Home so many nights to be able to have this child with this woman who I love. And so he yells out 7-0 because if it were a number sequence, 6 and then 7, his offspring is going to be 7. Okay. Um, 6-0 dies. And then let's turn to page 269. Remember that Paul D gets put into the bit. Oh, this chapter is a lot. Paul D gets put into the bit and he sees Setha, and Setha can't find Hallie. And so he tells her what he knows at the top of page 269. He tells her what he knows. Sixo is dead, the 30-mile woman ran, and he doesn't know what happened to Paul A. or Hallie. Where could he be, she asks. Paul D shrugs because he can't shake his head. You saw Sixo die? You sure? I'm sure. When he woke, when it happened, was he woke when he happened? Did he see it coming? He was woke and laughing. Sixo laughed? You should have heard him, Setha. Setha's dress steams before the little fire over which he is boiling water. It is hard to move about with shackled ankles, and the neck jewelry embarrasses him. In his shame, he avoids her eyes, but when he doesn't, he sees only black in them, no whites. She says she is going, and he thinks she will never make it to the gate, but he doesn't dissuade her. He knows he will never see her again. Right then and there, his heart stopped. The pupils must have taken her to the barn for sport right afterward. And when she told Mrs. Garner they took down the cowhide, who in hell or on this earth would have thought that she would cut away? They must have believed that with her belly and her back, she wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't surprised to learn that they had tracked her down in Cincinnati because when he thought about it now, her price was greater than his, property that reproduced itself without cost. Remembering his own price down to the cent that schoolteacher was able to get for him, he wondered what Setha's would have been. What had baby Suggs been? How much did Hallie owe? Still, besides his labor, what did Mrs. Garner get for Paul F? More than $900? How much more? $10? 20? Schoolteacher would know. He knew the worth of everything. It accounted for the real sorrow in his voice when he pronounced Sixo unsuitable. Who could be fooled into buying a singing person with a gun, shouting 7-0, 7-0, because his 30-mile woman got away with his blossoming seed? What a laugh. So rippling and full of glee, it put out the fire. And it was Sixo's laughter that was on his mind, not the bit in his mouth when they hitched him to the buckboard. Then he saw Hallie, then the rooster, smiling as if to say, You ain't seen nothing yet. How could a rooster know about Alfred, Georgia? All right. Okay, take a deep breath, go outside, take a walk around the block, sit with your feelings, think about this chapter. I know it's very heavy. I know it's a lot. And then come back for chapter 25.